They laughed at humanity's threat. Now they're hunted in the Dark War. Prime Krell made his decision. Pride won over wisdom. He would not negotiate with prey animals. He would not admit defeat to a species that had laughed at him only months ago. Instead, he would gather every remaining ship in the Krellian Empire and strike at the heart of humanity itself. If he destroyed Earth, the human species would break. They would have no choice but to surrender. 800 warships assembled in Krellian space, nearly everything the Empire had left. It was a desperate gamble, leaving their own territories poorly defended, but Krell believed it was necessary. One decisive strike, one overwhelming victory, and this nightmare would end. The Armada began its long journey toward Earth, jumping through multiple systems on the route. For once, human forces didn't harass them. The stealth fleet seemed to pull back, allowing the Krellian force to advance unmolested. To Krell, this confirmed his theory. The humans were retreating to defend their homeworld, finally gathering for the decisive battle he had wanted from the beginning. On Earth, Commander Taman stood in the command center watching the Krellian fleet approach. Around him, dozens of officers coordinated the final preparations for what would be the largest battle in human history. All defensive forces report ready, Fleet Admiral Sangwoo reported. 200 warships in position around Earth. Orbital platforms active, planetary shields at full power. And the trap? Taman asked, set and waiting. Every asset we have is in position. Dr. Hyeri worked at a nearby console tracking the Krellian approach vector. They're coming in fast, confident. They think this is their moment of victory. Jiwon joined them, her diplomatic credentials left behind for military observer status. The Galactic Council is watching. Every species has sensors trained on our system. Whatever happens here will determine humanity's place in the galaxy. Taman nodded slowly. 5 months ago, the Council had laughed at human threats. Now they watched in nervous silence as the supposedly primitive species prepared to face an empire that had dominated space for centuries. The Krellian Armada arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system, their sensors immediately detecting the human defensive fleet. Krell smiled when he saw the numbers. 200 human warships against his 800. Even with home territory advantage, the humans were outnumbered and outgunned. All ships advance to Earth, Krell ordered. Destroy everything in our path. Today we end this war. The Krellian fleet moved inward, passing the orbit of Neptune, then Uranus. Human defenders began to fall back, seemingly retreating before the overwhelming force. It all felt familiar to Krell, like the first battles of the invasion. Maybe the humans had just been lucky these past months. Maybe their stealth tactics only worked because he had underestimated them. Now in a proper battle with clear sides, Krellian superiority would show. They crossed Saturn's orbit, and that's when everything changed. The space around Saturn erupted with human ships, not the 200 vessels they had detected, but hundreds more that had been hiding in the planet's rings, behind its moons, nestled in the asteroid debris that surrounded it. Every apparent civilian station revealed itself as a military installation. Every mining platform turned out to be a weapons battery. Captain Minho's stealth fleet emerged from the darkness beyond Pluto, having followed the Krellians silently through their entire approach. 150 frigates appeared behind the enemy formation, cutting off any retreat. Jupiter was the same. Mars was worse. The asteroid belt became a nightmare of hidden weapons platforms and concealed ships. Every moon, every large asteroid, every piece of space debris in the inner solar system concealed something deadly. It's a trap, one of Krell's officers shouted. The entire system is a kill box. Human forces attacked from every direction. Ships that had seemed to retreat now turned and engaged with support from orbital platforms. Vessels hidden throughout the system revealed themselves and opened fire. The carefully planned Krellian formation broke apart as attacks came from angles they hadn't anticipated. Krell realized his mistake too late. The humans hadn't been defending Earth. They had been luring his entire fleet into their home territory, where humans knew every hiding spot, every tactical advantage, every possible ambush point. All ships break through to Earth, Krell ordered desperately. If we can take the planet, they'll have to surrender. But Major Sumi's ground forces had returned from the occupied colonies, along with millions of other resistance fighters. They manned Earth's orbital defenses with the same determination that had made the occupation impossible. And they weren't alone. Every human who could hold a weapon, operate a console, or coordinate logistics had volunteered for Earth's defense. The battle became a slaughter. Not because humans had better technology, but because they had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. They used gravity wells to slingshot missiles at impossible angles. They knew exactly where to place mines for maximum effect. They coordinated attacks from multiple vectors with perfect timing, overwhelming Krellian shields through sheer tactical superiority. Lieutenant Yunji coordinated strike groups from the Whisper in Darkness, her voice calm as she directed traffic through the chaos. Group 7 hit their supply ships. Group 12 support the orbital platforms. Group 20 prevent any Krellian vessels from escaping toward Jupiter. Ensign Doyen monitored enemy communications, listening as Krellian morale collapsed. They're panicking. Multiple ships requesting permission to surrender. Some are trying to run without orders. Krell's flagship took critical damage, its shields failing under sustained fire from human cruisers that attacked in coordinated waves. The War Prime retreated to the armored core of his ship as human marines breached the outer sections. Commander Taman led the boarding party personally, moving through the damaged corridors with practiced efficiency. He found Krell sitting on his command throne, defiant even in defeat. "You cannot win," Krell said. "Even if you destroy this fleet, the Krellian Empire still exists. We will rebuild and return." Taman removed his helmet, meeting the War Prime's eyes. "No, you won't. Because now every species in the galaxy knows what happens when they threaten humanity. You came here expecting a glorious battle, clear sides, honorable combat. That's not what we are." "You fight without honor," Krell spat. "We fight to survive," Taman corrected. "Humans evolved on a death world where everything was trying to kill us. We didn't become the dominant species by being the strongest or fastest. We survived because we never stopped. We chased prey across continents until it collapsed from exhaustion. We adapted to every environment. We learned to coordinate in groups and plan ahead. You see that as lacking honor. We see it as being very, very good at not dying." Taman gestured around at the destroyed ship, the broken fleet, the shattered invasion force. "You laughed when we threatened to defend our colonies. You thought we were prey because we looked weak. You judged us by your own standards and found us lacking. That was your fatal mistake. We don't fight like you fight. We fight like evolution itself. Patient, relentless, and absolutely inevitable." "Will you destroy our homeworld in revenge?" Krell asked quietly. "No," Taman said. "We're not conquerors. We just wanted to be left alone to build our colonies and explore the stars. You forced this war. Now you'll surrender completely. Withdraw from our territory, pay reparations, and sign treaties guaranteeing our independence. Do that and your species survives. And if we refuse?" Taman's expression turned cold. "Then we hunt your people through every dark corner of space until you change your mind or go extinct. That's what happens when you threaten persistence predators. We don't give up. We don't forget. We just keep coming forever until our prey stops running." Krell looked into Taman's eyes and saw truth there. This human wasn't making threats or trying to intimidate. He was simply stating facts. If the war continued, humanity would pursue the Krellian Empire into extinction with the same patient determination that had turned this battle into a massacre. "We surrender," Krell said. The words bitter but necessary. "I will order all Krellian forces to withdraw from human territory and accept your terms." On Apex Prime Station, the Galactic Council watched the battle's conclusion in stunned silence. The mighty Krellian Empire, dominant military power for 2 centuries, had been broken by a species that had only achieved spaceflight 15 years ago. High Arbiter Velthor felt his understanding of galactic civilization shift. Power wasn't just about technology or fleet size. It was about will, adaptability, and the refusal to accept defeat. Ambassador Jiwan appeared before the council one final time. Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried the weight of 5 months of war. Humanity joined the galactic community in good faith. We sought peace, trade, and cooperation. When the Krellian Empire threatened our colonies, we warned them. This council laughed at our warning and voted unanimously to support Krellian aggression. She paused, letting the silence grow heavy. Now you've seen what happens when you threaten a species that evolved as persistence predators on a death world. We don't fight with honor or glory. We fight with patience, adaptation, and the absolute certainty that we will outlast any enemy. We are hunters who never stop until our prey surrenders or dies. Admiral Osuman stood on the bridge of the battleship Unbroken and watched 40 human warships drop out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They emerged into the Greenfield system exactly on time, exactly where they were supposed to be. moving in coordination that should have been impossible for independent ships commanded by individual captains. The Kraith fleet defending the occupied world numbered 83 vessels. They had superior numbers and centuries of combat experience. They had conquered 17 species over 300 years. They believed they would win this battle easily. They were wrong about everything. Commander John Hyun sat at the tactical station aboard the Unbroken, her hands moving across holographic displays with practiced efficiency. She was 32 years old and had never seen real combat before the war started. But she had spent the last 3 weeks studying every battle the Kraith had ever fought, analyzing their tactics, finding their patterns, identifying their weaknesses. All ships report ready, Hyun said calmly. Quantum communication links are active. Targeting solutions locked. The quantum communication system was humanity's secret advantage. Most species used faster-than-light communication that still had milliseconds of lag. Humanity had perfected quantum entanglement communication that worked instantly across any distance. Every human captain could coordinate with every other captain in real time. They moved like a single organism with 40 bodies. The Kraith opened fire first, plasma bolts streaking through space toward the human formation. The human ships scattered, each one moving in a different direction but somehow never colliding, never blocking each other's firing lines, always maintaining perfect position relative to the formation. Then humanity returned fire. Dr. Bayek Jisu's quantum disruption mines activated throughout the battlefield, invisible fields of twisted space that collapsed hyperspace drives. Kraith ships trying to retreat found their FTL systems failing. They were trapped in normal space with an enemy they did not understand. The neural network virus infiltrated Kraith ship systems through their hive mind communication network. Suddenly, Kraith captains were receiving false orders, seeing targeting data that did not match reality, firing on their own ships by mistake. Chaos spread through the Kraith fleet like poison. The swarm drones launched by the thousands, small autonomous craft controlled by artificial intelligence that learned from every engagement. The Kraith shot down hundreds of them. Thousands more adapted, changed their approach patterns, found the weaknesses in Kraith point defense and started getting through. Each drone that penetrated the defenses carried enough explosive to cripple a ship. The battle lasted 47 minutes. 83 Kraith ships became debris. 40 human ships survived with minor damage. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration of overwhelming technological superiority, applied with surgical precision. Admiral O. Suman broadcast on all frequencies. This is the Terran Defense Fleet to all Kraith forces in this system. Surrender immediately and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue fighting and you will be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to decide. 38 Kraith ships surrendered. The rest tried to fight and died quickly. General Hong Siwon commanded the Terran Marine Expeditionary Force, and he was about to teach the Kraith what human ground combat looked like. He led 50,000 Marines and assault ships toward the surface of Greenfield. The Kraith ground forces numbered 150,000, fortified in positions they had spent weeks preparing. The Marines did not attack those positions. They went around them. Colonel Shin Woo-jin's Ghost Brigade had spent 3 weeks mapping every Kraith command center, every supply depot, every communication hub on the occupied world. General Hong's forces landed simultaneously at 20 different locations, all of them behind Kraith defensive lines, all of them targeting critical infrastructure. The Kraith soldiers suddenly found themselves cut off from their command structure. No orders came through. Their communication systems were dead. Their supply lines were severed. They were individual units with no coordination, facing an enemy that moved with perfect coordination. What followed was not glorious. Or never is. The Marines were professional and methodical. They offered surrender terms to every Kraith unit they encountered. Some surrendered. Those who chose to fight were eliminated with overwhelming firepower. The Marines took no pleasure in it. They just did what needed to be done. Within 72 hours, Greenfield was free. 30 million human civilians emerged from hiding to find their world scarred by occupation, but liberated. They also found something unexpected. The Marines were treating wounded Kraith prisoners, providing medical care following strict rules of war. A civilian approached General Hong with confusion and anger. After what they did to us, how can you help them? They killed millions of our people. Hong looked tired. He had not slept in 3 days. Because we are better than they are. Because showing mercy to defeated enemies is not weakness. It is proof that we are strong enough to choose mercy. Because if we become monsters to fight monsters, then they won. We stay human even in war. Especially in war. The liberation of Greenfield was just the beginning. Captain Lee Ara's stealth forces, now numbering 8 carriers operating in Kraith space, began systematic strikes on supply lines. Every convoy moving between Kraith worlds faced attack from an enemy they could not detect until it was too late. The Kraith military machine began to starve. Scientist Nam Yuna, an expert in alien biology, made a breakthrough in understanding Kraith hive mind communication. She discovered that their military coordination relied on predictable patterns, biological instincts refined over millions of years of evolution. Humans could predict where Kraith fleets would move before the Kraith commanders made the decision. One by one, the occupied human worlds fell back into human control. But Admiral Osuman did not stop at the border. Her forces pushed into Kraith space itself, liberating worlds that the Kraith had conquered from other species decades or centuries ago. The Galactic Council erupted in panic. Emergency sessions were called. Ambassadors from 14 species sent urgent messages to Ambassador Park Hana, demanding that humanity cease its aggressive expansion into Kraith territory. Park Hana addressed the council with words that would be remembered for generations. We are not expanding. We are eliminating a threat. The Kraith started this war believing we were weak. We will finish it by proving they were wrong. They invaded our space, killed our civilians, and forced us to become warriors. Now they face the consequences. Any species that wants to shelter them, any government that wants to provide them sanctuary can explain that decision to their own populations when our fleets arrive at your borders. We did not want this war, but now that it has started, we will end it completely. No species offered the Kraith sanctuary. Fear is a powerful teacher. The Kraith supremacy's leadership faced a crisis. For 300 years, they had never lost a war. Now they were losing badly to a species they had dismissed as harmless. Arch-Overseer Thexmal, the supreme military commander, made the decision to make a final stand at the Kraith homeworld. He assembled the largest fleet in Kraith history. 300 warships, every vessel that could be pulled from garrison duty, every ship that could still fly. They gathered in orbit above the world where the Kraith species was born, prepared to defend it to the last. Admiral Osuman arrived with 120 ships. The numbers favored the Kraith. Everything else favored humanity. Commander John Heun executed a battle plan that had taken 2 weeks to develop. The human fleet did not engage in traditional ship-to-ship combat. Instead, they deployed swarm drones in numbers that blotted out the stars. Hundreds of thousands of small craft, each one controlled by adaptive artificial intelligence that learned from every destroyed drone. Every successful attack, every Kraith defensive response. The Kraith fleet fired everything it had. Plasma cannons, missile batteries, point defense lasers. They destroyed drones by the thousands, but the swarm kept coming, kept adapting, kept learning. And behind the swarm, human battleships waited with charged weapons for the moment when the Kraith defenses weakened. The Kraith fleet, designed for centuries of warfare based on superior firepower and numbers, could not adapt fast enough to counter an enemy that evolved in real time. Their defensive formations broke. Their coordination failed. And when the gaps appeared, the human fleet struck with precision that would be studied in military academies for centuries. The battle lasted 6 hours. 287 Kraith ships were destroyed. 31 human ships were lost, and the galaxy mourned them. But the battle was won. Arch-Overseer Thexmal's flagship was crippled but intact. General Hong Siwan's Marines boarded it in a brutal action that was broadcast across the galaxy. The Marines fought through the ship deck by deck, facing Kraith soldiers who knew they were defending their species' last hope. They found Thexmal on the bridge, preparing to self-destruct the ship and take the boarding party with him. General Hong stopped him with a weapon pointed at his head, and words that were translated into every galactic language. No, you do not get the easy way out. You started this war. You killed 12 million of my people. 3 weeks passed after Haven Station burned, and the galaxy heard nothing from humanity. No military movements, no declarations of war, no demands for justice, just silence. The Kraith supremacy interpreted this silence as acceptance. Overseer Zekthar, the military governor assigned to the occupied human territories, established control systems on the 6 conquered worlds. Human populations were organized into work groups. Resources were extracted and shipped back to Kraith space. Anyone who resisted was executed publicly as an example. On the occupied world of Greenfield, human farmers were forced to grow food that would feed Kraith soldiers. In the ruins of Haven Station, Kraith salvage crews picked through the debris looking for valuable technology. They found bodies instead. Thousands of bodies frozen in the vacuum of space, still in their daily clothes, still holding their children. The salvage crews reported the bodies as obstacles and continued their work. The Galactic Council sent humanitarian aid requests to the Kraith. They were ignored. Several species quietly increased their border defenses, worried they might be next. Others tried to establish trade relationships with the Kraith, hoping that cooperation would protect them. No one came to help humanity. They were alone, but the silence was not surrender. The silence was preparation. Deep in human space, Admiral Osuman activated something called Protocol Broken Arrow. It was a plan that had existed for almost 200 years, updated by every generation of military officers, practiced in secret exercises that were disguised as training. It was humanity's answer to a single question: what do we do if someone tries to destroy us? Every human military vessel received encrypted orders. Reservists were called up without explanation. Civilian shipyards that normally built cargo haulers and passenger ships received new blueprints and started building things with armor plating and weapon hardpoints. Mining stations began extracting rare metals used in military-grade systems. Research facilities that studied peaceful applications of physics started studying very different applications. Captain Kang Minho, still recovering from the trauma of Haven Station, volunteered for military service. He was 43 years old and had no combat training. The military took him anyway and assigned him to logistics. They needed people who knew trade routes, shipping schedules, and how to move enormous amounts of cargo without attracting attention. Minho knew all of that. He worked 18-hour days helping coordinate the movement of equipment, personnel, and supplies across human space. He barely slept. When he did sleep, he dreamed of Haven Station burning. So he worked more because work meant he did not have to dream. On occupied Greenfield, something else was happening. Kraith supply depots started exploding. Communication relays failed mysteriously. Automated systems malfunctioned in ways that killed Kraith soldiers, but left human civilians unharmed. The Kraith blamed poor maintenance and equipment failures. They were wrong. They were being hunted. Colonel Shin Woo-jin commanded something called the Ghost Brigade. These were not regular soldiers. They were intelligence officers, saboteurs, and psychological warfare experts. They specialized in making the enemy paranoid, in destroying infrastructure without being seen, in turning an occupation into a nightmare. The Ghost Brigade infiltrated the occupied worlds in small teams. They did not fight the Kraith directly. Instead, they destroyed the things the Kraith needed to maintain control. A power plant here, a water purification system there, always in ways that looked like accidents, always leaving no evidence. The Kraith increased security. They executed human prisoners to scare the population into revealing the saboteurs. It did not work. The human civilians did not know where the Ghost Brigade was operating, because the Ghost Brigade looked like civilians. They worked in Kraith facilities during the day. They destroyed those facilities at night, and they were very, very patient. Overseer Zekthar reported to his superiors that the occupation was proceeding normally. He did not want to admit that he was losing control. That was a mistake. Far from occupied space, in a location so secret that it did not appear on any official maps, Dr. Baek Jisoo was working on problems that did not officially exist. She was the director of a research facility called Project Shadowfall, and for 150 years, that facility had been developing weapons that humanity hoped it would never need to use. The facility existed because human leaders had asked a simple question: what if peace fails? What if someone attacks us with the intent to destroy us completely? What weapons would we need to survive? The answer to those questions filled Dr. Baek's research facility. Quantum disruption mines that could collapse the hyperspace drives of enemy ships. Neural network viruses designed specifically to overload the hive mind communication that species like the Kraith used. Kinetic bombardment platforms disguised as commercial satellites. Swarm drones controlled by artificial intelligence that treated space combat like a chess game, learning and adapting to enemy tactics in real time. None of these weapons had ever been tested in actual combat. Dr. Bayek had 3 weeks to make sure they worked perfectly. Because failure meant humanity died, she did not sleep. She barely ate. She stood in her laboratory surrounded by weapons that could kill millions. And she thought about Haven Station's children's garden, now a field of frozen corpses tumbling through space. She worked faster. Meanwhile, Fleet Captain Lee Ara commanded the Silent Storm, humanity's first true stealth carrier. It used technology that bent sensor waves around it, making it nearly invisible to detection systems. The ship had been in development for decades, which was humanity's way of saying, we built it in secret and pretended we did not. Admiral O'Suman gave Lee Ara a simple mission. Take the Silent Storm into Kraith space, gather intelligence on their military capabilities, and return without being detected. Just reconnaissance. Just information. Lee Ara followed her orders for exactly 6 days. Then she found something too good to ignore. A Kraith supply convoy was moving through a lightly defended system, carrying food and medical supplies to occupation forces. The convoy had minimal escort, because the Kraith did not believe humanity had any military assets that could reach that deep into their space. They were wrong about that too. The Silent Storm attacked without warning. Its escort ships, 4 destroyers equipped with Dr. Buck's experimental weapons, tore through the Kraith convoy in minutes. The quantum disruption mines prevented the Kraith ships from escaping to hyperspace. The neural virus crashed their targeting systems. The swarm drones overwhelmed their point defenses. It was not a fair fight. It was an execution. Lee Ara left no survivors, not because she was cruel, but because she wanted to send a message that would terrify the Kraith. You are not safe anymore. Even in your own space, even with your superior numbers, even with your centuries of military experience, humanity is coming for you. The Kraith response was immediate and brutal. Overseer Zekthar, enraged by the convoy attack, ordered the execution of 5,000 human prisoners. The executions were broadcast across the galaxy as a warning. The message was clear. This is what happens when you resist us. The Galactic Council issued statements of concern. Several species offered to mediate. No one actually did anything to stop the executions or help humanity. They were too afraid of the Kraith. Colonel Shin Woo-jin watched the execution broadcast from a hiding spot on occupied Greenfield. He watched 5,000 people killed for the crime of being human. He felt rage cold and pure settle into his bones. Then he went to work. That night, 3 Kraith regional commanders died on 3 different occupied worlds. The assassinations happened simultaneously, coordinated across light years with perfect timing. The Ghost Brigade used no guns, no explosions, nothing that would cause collateral damage, just precise surgical strikes that killed only the targets. Each body was found with a message written in Kraith script. For every civilian you execute, we will kill 10 of your leaders. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The Kraith military command panicked. They had fought dozens of wars against dozens of species. None of those species had been able to coordinate special operations across multiple worlds simultaneously. None of those species had shown the ability to penetrate Kraith security so completely. None of those species had been so clinically efficient at assassination. The Kraith started to realize they might have made a mistake. But it was too late to stop now. Admiral O'Suman appeared on every communication channel in the galaxy. Her message was broadcast to the Galactic Council, to Kraith space, to every species with the technology to receive it. She stood in uniform, gray hair and tired eyes, and spoke in a voice that was calm and cold as winter. This is Admiral O'Suman of the Terran Defense Fleet. I am addressing the Kraith supremacy directly. For every human civilian you execute, we will eliminate 10 of your military commanders. For every world you brutalize, we will cripple 10 of your supply lines. For every war crime you commit, we will respond with 10 military operations. You wanted this war. You started it by attacking Haven Station and murdering 12 million civilians. Now you have it. And you're already losing. She paused, letting the message sink in. You thought we were weak because we chose peace. You confused our restraint with inability. Captain Kang Minho had been flying cargo ships for 15 years, and he knew the sound of his ship like he knew his own heartbeat. The gentle hum of the engines, the soft beep of navigation systems, the distant clatter of cargo containers settling into place. These were safe sounds, comfortable sounds. The sound that came next was none of those things. Haven Station floated in orbit above Greenfield, a beautiful agricultural world where 8 million humans grew food for half a dozen nearby systems. The station itself was home to another 200,000 people, farmers rotating off-world for rest, merchants from across the galaxy, families raising children in the safe embrace of human space. Minho had docked there 100 times before. His daughter had been born in Haven's medical wing 7 years ago. He was loading medical supplies when the alarm started screaming. Through the viewing port of his cargo ship, Minho watched something impossible. The space around Haven Station tore open, reality splitting like fabric as ships emerged from hyperspace. Not one or two ships, not a small fleet. Hundreds of vessels, each one bristling with weapons, each one painted in the red and black colors of the Kraith supremacy. "This is Haven Station control to all ships." The voice on the comm system was trying to stay calm and failing. "We have hostile contacts. All civilian vessels begin emergency departure procedures immediately." This is not a drill. Minho's hands moved before his brain caught up, reaching for the undocking controls. His crew of 6 were already moving, securing cargo, preparing for departure. They were good people, fast people, but not fast enough for what happened next. The Kraith opened fire. The first plasma bolt hit Haven's defensive shield, and for a moment, Minho felt relief. The shield held. The station had defenses. They would be okay. Then the second bolt hit, and the third, and 100 more, all focused on the same point of the shield until it collapsed like a soap bubble. What followed was not a battle. It was slaughter. The Kraith targeted the station's habitation rings first. Not the military sections, not the defensive platforms, the places where people lived, where children slept, where families ate dinner together. Minho watched in horror as sections of the station exploded, atmosphere venting into space in frozen clouds that sparkled in the sunlight. "Captain," his first officer said, her voice tight with fear, "we have 400 civilians in our cargo bay." They were boarding when the attack started. 400 people who had been waiting for transport. 400 people who were now trapped on his ship while death rained down around them. Minho made the only choice he could. Forget the undocking procedures. Tear the moorings if you have to. Get us out of here now. The cargo ship's steady hand pulled away from Haven Station with emergency thrusters, leaving pieces of the docking clamp behind. It was not a fast ship. It was not a military ship. It was a metal box with engines designed to carry grain and medicine between peaceful worlds. But Minho pushed those engines harder than they had ever been pushed, accelerating away from the dying station. Behind them, Haven Station died in sections. Minho's sensors showed each piece as it broke away, as atmosphere vented, as power failed. He could see the Kraith ships moving in, methodical and efficient, targeting anything that moved, anything that sent out distress signals, anything that might carry survivors. One Kraith destroyer began to pursue the steady hand. Minho's ship had no weapons, no military-grade shields, no chance at all if that destroyer caught them. He ran anyway, because 400 people in his cargo bay deserved the chance to live. The destroyer was gaining. Minho could see it on his sensors, getting closer, weapons charging. He opened a channel on all frequencies and sent out his final message, hoping someone would hear, hoping someone would care. "This is Captain Kang Minho of the cargo vessel Steady Hand. Haven Station is under attack by Kraith military forces. The station is lost. Millions are dead. I have 400 survivors aboard. If anyone can hear this, tell Earth what happened here. Tell them Haven is burning." He cut the transmission and braced for impact. But the impact never came. Another human ship, a patrol frigate, came out of nowhere and put itself between Minho's cargo ship and the Kraith destroyer. The frigate had real weapons, real shields. It bought Minho 30 seconds. That was enough. The Steady Hand jumped to hyperspace, carrying 400 survivors away from Haven Station. Behind them, the patrol frigate died, buying time for civilians to escape. Minho would never learn the name of that ship or its crew, but he would remember them forever. The journey to the nearest human military base took 6 hours. In the cargo bay, 400 people sat in silence or cried quietly. Some were injured. Some were in shock. All of them had watched their home die. When Minho finally docked at Gateway Fortress, he had to be physically removed from the pilot's seat. His hands were locked on the controls, shaking so hard he could not let go. Medical teams took him to the hospital wing. Military intelligence officers wanted to debrief him immediately. Admiral O'Suman came instead. She was 50 years old. With gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much peace and were about to see war, she sat down next to Minho's hospital bed and waited until he could speak. They targeted the residential sections first, Minho said finally. Not military targets. Not defensive weapons. The places where people lived. Children. Families. They killed them first. Osumin nodded slowly. How many made it out? I don't know. Maybe a few thousand on ships that were already leaving. Most didn't make it. Admiral, there were 8 million people on Greenfield. 200,000 on Haven Station. The Kraith came with a fleet that could destroy planets. Over the next 72 hours, the reports came in from across the border region. 6 human worlds invaded. 12 million dead in the first wave. 30 million more under Kraith occupation. The Kraith were not trying to conquer human space slowly. They were trying to break humanity's will to resist by killing so many people so quickly that surrender seemed like the only option. The Terran Commonwealth Council met in emergency session. Politicians argued about responses, about diplomacy, about whether humanity could even fight back against an enemy this powerful. The debates went on for 18 hours while more colonies burned. Finally, President Choi Jin-seo made the decision. He gave Admiral Osumin full authority to mobilize every military asset humanity possessed. No restrictions, no rules about what weapons could be used, no limits on what tactics were acceptable. Just one order. Stop the Kraith. Director Yoon Sejin, head of Terran Intelligence, came to Osumin's office that night. He brought files marked with classifications so secret that most people did not know they existed. Projects that humanity had developed over 200 years of peace. Weapons designed for a war they hoped would never come. Systems tested in secret because even building them seemed too dangerous. We built all of this? Osumin asked, looking through the files. We did, Yoon said quietly. We hoped we would never need it. We built it anyway, just in case. Every human generation for 2 centuries added something to these files. Now we find out if it was enough. Osumin looked at the files, then looked at the casualty reports from Haven Station and the other colonies. 12 million dead. 12 million people who would never go home, never see their families, never have the chance to grow old. Get everything ready, she said. Every weapon, every ship, every system we have. The Kraith think we are weak because we choose peace. They are about to learn the difference between choosing peace and being unable to fight. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council held its own emergency session. Representatives from 34 species gathered to discuss the Kraith invasion of human space. The Kraith ambassador explained calmly that they were simply claiming territory that was underutilized by humanity. Other species nodded or stayed silent. The Kraith were powerful. No one wanted to be their next target. The human ambassador, Park Hana, sat quietly through the entire session. She was 60 years old, had spent 40 years in diplomatic service, and had always believed that words could solve any problem. Today, she learned the limits of words. When asked for humanity's response to the invasion, Ambassador Park stood up. She did not give a speech. She did not argue about law or justice. She simply played a recording. It was Captain Kang Minho's transmission from Haven Station. The alarms were loud. The sound of explosions was louder. And in the background, barely audible, was the sound of screaming. Thousands of voices crying out as their world ended. The recording played for 30 seconds. Ambassador Park let it finish, then spoke 4 words. We will respond appropriately. She left the chamber without waiting for questions or comments. Behind her, the Galactic Council sat in uncomfortable silence. They did not understand what those 4 words meant. Not yet, but they would learn. The whole galaxy would learn. Because humanity was about to teach them a lesson that had been forgotten during 200 years of peace. Humans are very good at peace. They are even better at war, and when you force them to choose war, they do not do it halfway. 20 years had passed since Haven Station burned, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Admiral Kang Minho, the cargo ship captain who had saved 400 lives during the first hours of the war, now ran the TSI Naval Academy. His gray hair and the lines on his face told the story of someone who had seen too much but chose to keep going anyway. The Academy trained officers from 30 different species, teaching them not just how to fight, but why fighting should always be the last option. Human cadets trained alongside Kraith students, Velen pilots, and recruits from species that had once been enemies or strangers. Minho's daughter, Lieutenant Kang Sarah, had graduated at the top of her class 3 years ago. She was 27 now, serving as tactical officer aboard a TSI patrol ship called Horizon's Edge. The ship had a mixed crew: humans, Kraith, Velans, and others. They patrolled the border regions, responding to distress calls and maintaining peace. Sarah had grown up with stories of the war. She knew what had happened at Haven Station, knew how many people died, knew the price her father paid for saving those 400 survivors, but she had never seen combat herself. The last 20 years had been peaceful, which was exactly what her father's generation had fought to achieve. That peace was about to be tested. The Vorax Collective came from beyond the explored regions of space. They were an advanced species with powerful technology and an ideology based on expansion. They believed their culture was superior and had a destiny to control as much territory as possible. They looked at the TSI and saw an organization that talked about peace and cooperation, which to the Vorax meant weakness. They decided to test that assumption by attacking a Velan colony world. It was a calculated strike, designed to see if humanity would actually defend non-human allies or if the TSI was just words without action. The Vorax expected humanity to back down, to negotiate, to prove that 20 years of peace had made them soft. Lieutenant Kang Sarah's patrol ship received the distress call first. The Horizon's Edge was a small vessel with a crew of 40, facing a Vorax battle group of 6 ships. The math was simple: they were outnumbered and outgunned. Standard protocol was to retreat and call for reinforcements. Sarah did not retreat. The colony below had 8,000 Velan civilians, who would die if the Vorax bombardment continued. She calculated that her ship could buy time. Maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, for those civilians to reach shelters. That might be enough for reinforcements to arrive. All hands to combat stations, she ordered calmly. Charge weapons and prepare evasive maneuvers. Our job is to be annoying enough that they focus on us instead of the colony. Make every shot count. Her crew, trained in the tactics her father's generation had perfected, executed with precision. The Horizon's Edge was fast and maneuverable. It could not win a straight fight, but it could dance around the Vorax ships, drawing fire, disrupting targeting systems, making itself enough of a threat that the Vorax had to respond. For 6 hours, Sarah kept her ship alive through skill and luck. She used every trick taught at the academy. Unpredictable movement patterns, false sensor signatures, coordinated attacks with her small weapons that targeted critical systems. Her ship took damage. 2 crew members died, but the civilians below made it to shelters, and reinforcements arrived before the Horizon's Edge was destroyed. The TSI response force, led by General Hong Siwon's daughter, arrived with 20 ships. They found the Vorax battle group still trying to destroy one small patrol vessel that refused to die quietly. The sight of TSI reinforcements should have made the Vorax retreat. They chose to fight instead. That was a mistake. The battle lasted 40 minutes. The Vorax learned what the Kraith had learned 20 years earlier. Human military forces, when defending allies, were efficient and merciless. All 6 Vorax ships were crippled or destroyed. The TSI force took minimal damage. The Vorax military command sent a formal protest to the Galactic Council, claiming the TSI had used excessive force. They expected sympathy or at least diplomatic negotiation. They received neither. Admiral Kang Minho, representing the TSI, met the Vorax delegation at Neutral Space Station. He brought his daughter with him. Sarah still had bandages from injuries sustained during the battle. She stood at attention while her father spoke. You attacked a TSI member world without provocation. You expected us to back down because we talk about peace. That was your mistake. Peace is not weakness. It is a choice we make every day. You forced us to make a different choice. Now you understand the consequences. The Vorax commander, a being called Thexron, was confused. Your reputation suggested you had grown soft. 20 years of peace. Your military forces training together, rather than preparing for war. We calculated that you would not risk conflict over a minor colony. Minho smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Let me explain something about humans and our partners in the TSI. We remember what war costs. We remember Haven Station and 12 million dead. We built this peace because we know exactly what the alternative looks like. You thought memory would make us afraid to fight. You were wrong. Memory makes us very good at fighting because we never forget the lessons we learn. He gestured to Sarah. My daughter held off your battle group for 6 hours with one patrol ship. She did that because we teach every officer in the TSI exactly how to fight when outnumbered. We teach them because we remember being outnumbered. We teach them because peace requires the capability to defend it. The negotiations resulted in the Vorax withdrawing from TSI space and agreeing to probationary membership in the Security Initiative. They were given strict limitations on military expansion and required to participate in cultural exchange programs. Some Vorax leaders resented this. Others, particularly younger Vorax who questioned their society's focus on expansion, saw an opportunity. Scholar Thexril, the Kraith historian whose father had been arch-overseer during the war, published a new edition of his book The Folly of Supremacy, with an additional chapter about the Vorax incident. The book was now required reading in schools across 40 star systems. In the new chapter, he wrote, "The Vorax made the same mistake my parents' generation made. They saw humanity's desire for peace as inability to fight. They forgot that the most dangerous opponent is not the one who wants to fight, but the one who knows how to fight and chooses not to unless absolutely necessary. Because when that opponent finally fights, they have no hesitation, no doubt, and no mercy for those who forced them into violence." Ambassador Park Hana, now 82 years old, was asked to give a commemorative speech at the Galactic Council. 20 years had passed since the war ended. A new generation of diplomats filled many seats, species who knew the conflict only as history. She stood slowly, her body showing the weight of years but her mind still sharp. She had spent her retirement writing memoirs and teaching diplomatic history. Today she would give her final public address. 20 years ago, the Kraith supremacy invaded human space. They killed 12 million of our people in the first wave. They forced us to remember skills we had spent centuries trying to forget. They made us into warriors when we wanted to be partners. We won that war, but winning was not enough. We had to win the peace too. She paused, looking around at the assembled representatives from dozens of worlds. Some of you wonder why humans maintain such powerful military forces when we talk constantly about peace. You see it as contradiction or hypocrisy. Let me explain what it really is. It is insurance. We proved we can destroy. Now we spend every day proving we can build. We proved we can conquer. Now we spend every day proving we can cooperate. Her voice grew stronger, carrying the weight of decades of experience. The Kraith learned one lesson from our war. No one invades human space twice. The Vorax just learned the same lesson about invading TSI territory, but I want this council to learn a different lesson. No one needs to invade at all, because we will meet you halfway. We will trade with you. We will defend you if you are our partners. We will help you build instead of forcing you to submit." She looked directly at the Vorax delegation. "But if you forget, if another species decides that talking about peace means we have forgotten how to wage war, then know this: we have not forgotten. We choose not to fight. Every single day we make that choice. But the choice is always ours to make, and if you force us to choose differently, you will learn why the galaxy remembers what happened to the Kraith." The council chamber was completely silent. Parkhana sat down slowly, and the session ended without further comment. Outside the chamber windows, a joint TSI fleet patrolled in perfect formation. Human ships flew alongside Kraith vessels that had once been enemies. Velen cruisers coordinated with Vorax scouts, learning to work as partners rather than conquerors. A new era, built on the foundation of remembered sacrifice. That evening, Admiral Kang Minho met his daughter at a quiet restaurant overlooking Earth. They had not seen each other in months. Sarah was on leave, recovering from her injuries and preparing to return to duty. "I read your after-action report," Minho said quietly. 6 hours against impossible odds. "You held the line." Sarah looked uncomfortable with the praise. "I did what any officer would do. What you taught us to do.